Welcome to the channel The Coin Lore Vault. Imagine for just a moment that you're sitting at home, maybe going through an old jar of coins that's been collecting dust in your closet for years, or perhaps you're sorting through loose change from your grandparents' attic, and suddenly you pick up what looks like an ordinary 1988 Lincoln penny. Nothing special at first glance, just another copper coin that millions of Americans have handled without a second thought. But then you take a closer look. You notice something unusual. Something that makes your heart skip a beat. Because this isn't just any penny. This is a coin that collectors have paid up to $14,000 for at auction. Yes, you heard that right, $14,000 for a single penny that was minted in 1988. A year that most people remember for movies like Die Hard and Rain Man. A year when the world was changing rapidly. But hidden among billions of ordinary pennies produced that year was a small batch of error coins that would become some of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. Now, you might be wondering what makes this particular penny so incredibly valuable. Well, let me take you on a journey back to 1988, back to the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, where millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck day after day. The process was supposed to be flawless, precise machinery stamping out identical coins with Abraham Lincoln's noble profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But something went wrong during the die-making process, something that would create a double die error that collectors dream about finding. This error occurs when the die used to stamp the coin is accidentally struck multiple times during the hubbing process, each strike slightly offset from the last, creating a doubling effect on the finished coin. And when you look at a genuine 1988 double die Lincoln penny under magnification, you can see this ghostly shadow effect on Lincoln's face, on the words, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." The letters appear to have a double image, like a photograph that's been slightly blurred or moved during exposure, and this isn't just a minor imperfection that you need a microscope to see. On high-grade examples, the doubling is visible to the naked eye, making it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking for. But here's where the story gets even more fascinating, because the United States Mint didn't produce these error coins intentionally. In fact, when the error was discovered, most of these pennies were supposed to be destroyed, melted down before they ever reached circulation. But somehow, someway, a small number escaped the mint and made their way into the hands of unsuspecting Americans who spent them like regular pennies, dropping them into vending machines, using them to buy newspapers, leaving them as tips at diners, completely unaware that they were handling a future fortune. Fast forward to today, and numismatists, that's the fancy word for coin collectors, are willing to pay thousands of dollars for these error pennies, especially if they're in pristine, uncirculated condition. The coin grading system runs from poor 1 all the way up to perfect mint state 70. And when a 1988 double die Lincoln penny comes up for auction in MS 67 or higher condition, the bidding war begins. One particular specimen sold for exactly $14,000 because it had been preserved in flawless condition, never circulated, never touched by human hands after it left the mint, stored away by a collector who recognized its potential value. And that's the key word here, potential. Because right now, as you're watching this video, there could be more of these pennies out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to actually look at their change instead of just spending it mindlessly. Think about all the pennies you've handled in your lifetime. How many times have you actually examined them closely? How many times have you checked the date, studied the details, looked for irregularities? Most people never do. They just see a penny as 1 cent, barely worth bending over to pick up off the sidewalk. But collectors know better. They know that among the trillions of pennies minted over the decades, there are error coins and rare varieties that can be worth hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, and the 1988 double die is just one example of this phenomenon. What makes it even more exciting is that you don't need to be a professional numismatist to find one of these treasures. You just need to be observant, patient, and willing to spend a little time examining your coins. Keep a magnifying glass handy. Check your pocket change regularly. Go through those old coin jars that have been sitting around for years, and who knows, you might just discover that you've been carrying a small fortune around without even realizing it. The story of the 1988 Lincoln Penny is a reminder that value isn't always obvious, that sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects can hide extraordinary worth, and that paying attention to details can literally pay off in ways you never imagined. Now, before we move on, I need to tell you something that's going to make you want to stick around until the very end of this video, because if you think $14,000 for a 1988 penny is impressive, wait until you hear about the other coins we're about to reveal. Coins that are worth even more, coins with stories that are even more unbelievable, coins that might be hiding in your collection right now. We're talking about pennies from other years that have sold for prices that will absolutely shock you. And I'm not going to reveal the exact values just yet because I want you to experience the same excitement, the same sense of discovery that collectors feel when they uncover these hidden treasures. So don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead, because what's coming next is going to blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single detail of what we're about to share with you. Next, the 1998 Lincoln Penny, and if you thought the previous coin was remarkable, buckle up because this one takes the story of rare pennies to an entirely different level. We're talking about a coin that has sold for $17,000 at major numismatic auctions. And the crazy part is that millions of people handled these pennies back in 1998 without having any clue whatsoever that they might be holding a future jackpot in their hands. Picture this, it's 1998, the world is buzzing with excitement about the internet revolution. Everyone's talking about Google, which just launched that year. Titanic is dominating movie theaters, and meanwhile, the United States Mint is cranking out billions of Lincoln pennies just like they do every single year, business as usual, right? Wrong. Because during that production run, something extraordinary happened at the Mint, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins of the modern era. And this error is so visually striking, so unmistakably obvious once you know what to look for, that it's absolutely mind-blowing how many of these coins probably got spent at face value before anyone realized their true worth. The 1998 Lincoln Penny that we're talking about isn't just any ordinary penny from that year. Oh no, this is a specimen with what collectors call a wide AM error, and let me explain exactly what that means because this detail is absolutely crucial to understanding why this coin is worth so much money. On a normal Lincoln penny, if you flip it over and look at the reverse side where the Lincoln Memorial is depicted, you'll see the words United States of America written across the top. Now pay very close attention to the letters A and M in the word America, because on a regular penny, these two letters are positioned so close together that they're almost touching. The gap between them is minimal, barely noticeable, but on the wide AM variety, there's a clearly visible space between the A and M. They're separated, spaced apart in a way that they shouldn't be according to the Mint specifications for that year. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what? It's just a tiny spacing difference. Why would that make the coin worth $17,000? And that's a fantastic question because it gets to the heart of what makes error coins so valuable in the collector market. You see, this wasn't supposed to happen. The dies used to strike 1998 pennies were supposed to use the close AM spacing. But somehow, somewhere in the production process, a die with the wide AM spacing, which was actually the correct spacing for proof coins but not for circulation strikes, got mixed up and was used to strike regular circulation pennies, creating a hybrid. Error that represents a genuine mistake by the United States Mint, and mistakes by the Mint, especially ones that make it into circulation, are gold for collectors because they're rare, they're unexpected, and they're absolutely fascinating from a historical and technical perspective. Think about the odds here. Out of the billions of pennies minted in 1998, only a tiny fraction have this wide AM error. We're talking about maybe a few hundred specimens that have been discovered and authenticated so far. And who knows how many are still out there, lost in circulation, sitting in piggy banks, tucked away in drawers, or worse, sitting at the bottom of a fountain where someone tossed them to make a wish without realizing they were literally throwing away thousands of dollars. The discovery of these wide AM pennies sent shockwaves through the numismatic community when collectors started finding them in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Suddenly everyone was checking their 1998 pennies with magnifying glasses, examining that crucial spacing between the A and M, hoping to strike it rich, and some people did. There are documented cases of regular folks, people with no background in coin collecting, who found these errors in their pocket change and ended up selling them for thousands of dollars to eager collectors and dealers who understood their significance. One particular 1998 wide AM penny in MS68 condition, meaning it was in near-perfect uncirculated state with minimal contact marks and full original mint luster, sold at a Heritage Auctions event for exactly $17,000. And the bidding for that coin was fierce, with multiple collectors competing aggressively because high-grade examples of this error are incredibly scarce. Most of the wide AM pennies that survived were circulated, handled, spent, and by the time they were discovered, they showed wear and damage that lowered their grade and their value, so finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is like finding a needle in a haystack, or more accurately, like finding a diamond in a mountain of ordinary rocks. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. The 1998 wide AM error isn't limited to just one mint. These errors have been found on pennies from both the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't use a mint mark, and there have been reports of similar errors from other years as well, creating a whole category of wide AM pennies that collectors actively hunt for. It's become something of a treasure hunt within the coin collecting hobby, and the thrill of discovery, that moment when you're going through a roll of pennies and you spot one with that telltale wide spacing. That's an adrenaline rush that keeps collectors coming back for more. Now let me paint you a picture of what it's actually like to find one of these coins. Imagine you're at a bank and you ask the teller for a few rolls of pennies. Maybe you're just curious after watching videos like this one. Or maybe you've become genuinely interested in the hobby of coin roll hunting, so you take those rolls home, crack them open, and start going through them one by one. At first it's tedious. You're looking at penny after penny, checking dates, examining details, and most of what you find is just ordinary circulated currency, nothing special, but then your eye catches something, a 1998 penny, your heart rate picks up a little because you remember hearing about the wide AM error. You flip it over to check the reverse, and there it is, that unmistakable spacing between the A and M, wider than it should be, clearly visible even without magnification, and in that moment, you realize you might be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars, a coin that could pay off your credit card debt, fund a vacation, or become the centerpiece of your own coin collection. That's the magic of coin collecting, that possibility that the next coin you examine could be the one, the rare error that changes everything. And here's something else to consider. The value of these error coins tends to increase over time, especially as more and more of them are either permanently collected, meaning they're taken out of circulation forever, or lost, damaged, or destroyed. The supply decreases while the demand from collectors remains strong or even grows, creating upward pressure on prices, so that 1998 wide AM penny that sold for $17,000 a few years ago might be worth even more today, and it could be worth significantly more in another decade or two, making these coins not just collectibles but potential investments for those who have the knowledge and patience to pursue them seriously. But wait, don't think we're done revealing incredible pennies yet, because I promised you at the beginning that we had multiple coins to share, and we've only covered two so far. There's still one more penny coming up that's going to absolutely blow everything we've talked about out of the water. We're talking about a coin with a value that seems almost impossible to believe, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Lincoln penny can be worth. And when I reveal the details, the story behind it, and the price that collectors have paid for it, you're going to understand why paying attention to your pocket change isn't just a quirky hobby. It's a legitimate opportunity to discover hidden wealth that most people walk right past every single day. So stay with me. Don't click away, because what's coming next is the grand finale. The coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that small things can have enormous value if you just take the time to look closer. Next, the 2015 Lincoln Penny, and this is it. This is the grand finale, the absolute crown jewel of modern Lincoln Penny errors, a coin so extraordinary, so incredibly rare and valuable that when I tell you the price, you're going to do a double take and wonder if you heard me correctly. But yes, it's true, we're talking about a penny, a single-cent piece minted just a few years ago in 2015, that has sold for an absolutely staggering $22,000 at auction. And before you think this is some kind of mistake or exaggeration, let me take you deep into the story of this remarkable coin, a story that involves cutting-edge minting technology, a catastrophic error that should never have happened, and the lucky individuals who discovered these treasures hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary pennies. Let's set the scene. It's 2015, smartphones are everywhere, social media dominates daily life, and the United States Mint is producing Lincoln Pennies using some of the most advanced coin-striking technology ever developed. These aren't the same manual processes from decades ago. We're talking about computer-controlled presses, precision dies, quality control systems designed to catch errors before they ever reach circulation. The whole operation is supposed to be virtually foolproof, yet somehow, despite all this modern technology, despite all the safeguards and checkpoints, a batch of pennies was struck with an error so dramatic, so visually obvious, that it stands as one of the most significant minting mistakes of the 21st century. The error we're talking about is what numismatists call a massive die crack or die break error, combined with what's known as a CUD, and if you're not familiar with these terms, let me explain in detail because understanding exactly what went wrong is key to appreciating why this coin is worth so much money. During the minting process, the dies, which are the metal stamps that strike the design onto blank coin planchets, are subjected to enormous pressure. We're talking about tons of force being applied thousands of times per day, and over time, even the hardest steel can develop stress fractures. These tiny cracks can form in the die's surface, and if they're not detected and the die isn't replaced, those cracks can grow larger with each successive strike until eventually, a piece of the die actually breaks away, creating what's called a cud, which appears on the finished coin as a raised blob of metal, a blank area where the design is completely missing or severely distorted. Now, on the 2015 Lincoln Penny error that sold for $22,000, this wasn't just a small crack or a minor imperfection that you need a magnifying glass to see. Oh no, this was a massive die break that affected a significant portion of the coin's surface. On the obverse side, where Lincoln's profile should be clearly visible, there's a huge raised area, a cud that obliterates part of the design, creating a coin that looks almost alien, almost like it's a different denomination entirely. And when you hold one of these error pennies in your hand, there's no mistaking it for a normal coin. The error is so pronounced, so visually striking, that even someone with zero knowledge of numismatics would immediately recognize that something is very, very wrong with this penny. But here's the truly fascinating part, and this is what makes this error so valuable beyond just its visual drama. These massive die break pennies from 2015 should never have made it into circulation at all. The Mint's quality control processes are specifically designed to catch errors like this. Dies are supposed to be inspected regularly, and when significant damage is detected, they're immediately pulled from service and destroyed. Yet somehow, this damaged die continued striking coins, possibly for hours before someone noticed and shut down the press. And during that window, an unknown number of these error pennies were produced, mixed in with normal pennies, bagged up, and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks. And from there, they entered circulation where ordinary Americans received them as change, spent them at stores, dropped them into tip jars, completely unaware that they were handling coins that would one day be worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. The discovery of these 2015 error pennies created an absolute frenzy in the coin collecting community. When the first examples started appearing on online auction platforms and in coin dealer inventories, collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. Modern errors of this magnitude are extremely rare because the Mint's quality control has improved so much over the decades. So finding a recent error that's this dramatic and obvious is like winning the lottery. And the prices these coins commanded reflected that scarcity and desirability, the highest grade example. A specimen that was discovered shortly after production and immediately preserved in a professional coin holder to prevent any damage or deterioration. Graded at MS67 Red by the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world. And when that coin came up for auction, the bidding was absolutely fierce. Collectors from around the country, maybe even around the world, competed to own this piece of minting history. And when the gavel finally came down, the winning bid was $22,000. $22,000 for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. That's a markup of 2,200,000%. And it stands as one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern Lincoln penny error. Now, let's talk about what this means for you, the person watching this video right now, because here's the reality. While the highest grade example of this error sold for $22,000, there are other specimens out there, coins that were circulated, that show somewhere that might not be in perfect mint state condition but still carry this dramatic error, and those coins are still worth thousands of dollars. Even a heavily circulated example with significant where could easily sell for $2,000, $5,000, maybe even $10,000 depending on the severity of the error and the demand at the time of sale. So if you happen to have a jar of pennies at home, if you've been saving change over the years, if you've inherited a coin collection from a family member, it is absolutely worth your time to go through those pennies and check for errors, especially pennies from 2015, because you might just discover that you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. And think about the broader implication of what we've discussed in this video. We've shown you 3 different Lincoln pennies from 3 different years, 1988, 1998, and 2015, and together they represent over $53,000 in potential value, all from coins that most people would never look at twice, coins that get spent at face value every single day, coins that are probably in your wallet, your car's cup holder, your desk drawer right this very moment, and the only difference between someone who discovers these treasures and someone who spends them unknowingly is knowledge and attention. You now have the knowledge, you know what to look for, you know that a 1988 penny with doubling could be worth $14,000, that a 1998 penny with wide AM spacing could be worth $17,000, and that a 2015 penny with a massive die break could be worth $22,000. So the question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to dismiss it as interesting but not relevant to your life? Or are you going to take action? Are you going to start examining your coins, checking dates, looking for errors, becoming one of those people who actually pays attention to the small details that everyone else ignores? Because here's the truth. Treasure hunting doesn't always require a metal detector and a beach. Doesn't always require diving for shipwrecks or exploring ancient ruins. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places. In your pocket, in your piggy bank, in that forgotten jar on your shelf, and all you have to do is look. The stories we've shared today aren't just about coins, they're about possibility, about the idea that value can be found anywhere if you're willing to seek it out. They're about everyday people who stumbled upon extraordinary wealth simply because they took a moment to examine something closely instead of dismissing it as worthless. And that's a lesson that extends far beyond numismatics. It's a life lesson about paying attention, about not taking things at face value, about recognizing that the world is full of hidden opportunities waiting to be discovered by those who are curious, observant, and willing to put in just a little bit of effort. So as we wrap up this journey through the world of valuable Lincoln pennies, I want to leave you with this final thought. The coins we've discussed today, the $14,000 penny from 1988, the $17,000 penny from 1998, and the $22,000 penny from 2015, they're not just collectibles, they're not just pieces of metal with arbitrary values assigned by collectors. They're proof that magic still exists in the world, that fairy tale discoveries can happen to real people, and that sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest, most overlooked things in life can turn out to be the most valuable treasures of all. So go check your change, examine those pennies, and who knows, maybe the next success story in the coin collecting world will be yours. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this entire video, for taking the time to learn about these incredible coins, and remember, every penny you receive from this day forward deserves a second look, because you never know when that next ordinary looking Lincoln penny might just change your life forever.